This is the Spiritual Muscle Podcast with your hosts, Scott Hayward and Cory B.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Spiritual Muscle Podcast. This is episode 2. I'm Cory.
I'm Scott.
And today we're going to talk about a few more subjects that I think is on everyone's mind right now. We're going to get into a little bit of fitness news, talk a little bit about the Spiritual Muscle Minute, and today we're going to start off, though, with an interesting update on what's going on with the COVID, what's going on with cleanliness measures and some of the gyms, because that's kind of going to lead us into our fitness news of the day, which is kind of a big story coming out of West Virginia right now. Some of y'all might have saw on CNN.
Scary.
Yeah, very scary. So we'll go ahead and talk a little bit about what's going on in some of the gyms with Scott, because, you know, he owns a gym and he's probably the right guy to tell you some of the precautions that people should be taking and some of the things you should be looking for when you're at the gym in the next coming weeks as we're all kind of reopening. So, what are you thinking is kind of going down with that?
Well, the first thing is you have a lot of gyms that open pretty quickly, and now they're closing again. They're being forced to close in several different states by the governor. He is mandating that he feels that, you know, bars and restaurants and gyms are a haven for COVID-19 to be shuttled back and forth between people. I believe the topic you mentioned with Morgantown, there was a Planet Fitness down there in Morgantown, and it had over 200 people that were exposed. Now, the details are a little murky. I'm not sure if it was just another gym member or a staff member that tested positive, but they went ahead and did the responsible thing. They closed, they deep cleaned, and I believe they're going to let the doors stay closed for several days just to make sure, and then I'm sure they'll be reopening.
Yeah, and I can imagine it would be really scary to know that you're going to this gym all the time, and then, you know, COVID hits, and you're just kind of up in the air about what's going to happen for the few months that happened. And now that the gyms are reopening, you're just really eager to get back in. And at the same time, I feel like a lot of people don't, know a lot of friends or family or even, acquaintances that have actually attracted the virus. So when you're in a place like that, you kind of have that, it can't happen to me attitude, until suddenly you realize, wow, I was working out in a place where a guy was, in there with COVID-19, without the knowledge of it just an hour before I started working out. And what if they didn't clean the machines? What if, they happened to not have great ventilation in the building or something, anything that could be, just really scary to think about.
Well, on a personal note, I have a very good friend, and he just got found out that he was COVID-19 positive from a test. Now, if you ask him, he has no symptoms. He's not feeling poorly, no low energy, no headache, no fever, living his life. However, he could be the quintessential person that would carry 2, 3, 4, 5, 50 other people. So he's doing the responsible thing, and I take my hat off to him. He's doing the responsible thing, and he is quarantining and locking down and getting away from people and basically working from a remote location for the next 14 days. And my thoughts and prayers go out to that guy.
Well, that's awesome, yeah, because I feel like that's the hard thing, is to accept what's going on with you, and if you happen to be exposed, even if you don't have it, to stay away as much as possible, even though right now it's hard. We're getting into month, 4, I think, going into July, where people are, eager to get out and start their regular lives again. But at least, what are some of the cleaning ideas that most people should be taking, or some of the precautionary ideas, not just to spray down your machine when you're at a gym, if you happen to be going to a Planet Fitness or a CrossFit or some kind of gym where you're going to get a lot of people, a lot of foot traffic? Should they be wearing masks? Should they try and stay clear and use machines that are at least, maybe even 10 and 12 feet away, not just 6 feet away from somebody else who's breathing really heavy and maybe going through a really heavy workout? Should people be, spacing out on machines, things like that?
As far as masks, if it is intense in nature, you should not be wearing a mask. You should still be practicing social distancing, but there's nothing greater achieved by you putting a mask on other than you inhaling all that carbon dioxide that you just exhaled. So if it's intense in nature, you shouldn't have a mask on. If it's moderate in nature or light in nature, you should wear a mask. I would say anywhere between that 6 and 10 feet would be the best place to be. Obviously, erring on the side of 10. I would really choose where you're going to go in the gym. I would choose that spot very, very carefully. You're not going to find me standing over right next to the treadmill section where people are running and sweating, flying everywhere, and I'm going to choose that area to do some curls.
Yeah, right.
Or I'm going to do my deadlifts there. That's probably not a wise choice. So you want to kind of quarantine yourself even within the facility that you're at.
Yeah. And I think going into that, I guess some of the things I always think about is, like, if you're going to do cardio and you're going to get on a treadmill, you really don't have to go to a gym to do that. You can run through your streets, unless you happen to be, in an area with a lot of traffic or a very, dense city population. You can get a lot of good cardio and things like that just out in the fresh air, and this is kind of a reason to do that. Now, if you don't have a gym at home or you need to go lift and you're trying to, keep up with things like that, I can understand maybe that, but do you think that's kind of a good alternative for now to be outside a little bit more and try to do that?
I think that's a great idea. The other thing is, believe it or not, you can go ahead and find a 40-yard stretch of grass or turf and do sprints. Sprint down as hard as you can, 40 yards, turn back, walk back, catch your breath. Once your breathing returns to just about near pre-exercise level, sprint again. Do 10 of those, you've got no problem. Your cardio is done for the day. That would be the quintessential HIIT workout. High intensity, which would be the sprint, followed by a low intensity, walking back, making sure the breathing returns to near pre-exercise level, then sprinting again. Do you remember a guy, Herschel Walker?
Yeah.
Okay, he was a great running back, University of Georgia. Won the Heisman Trophy, had a pretty distinguished NFL career.
Yeah, he did.
However, guy didn't lift weights.
Really? Just all cardio?
Bigger than that. He did push-ups, pull-ups, dips. However, he got his cardio by sprinting. So when he's sprinting, he was the NCAA 100-meter sprint champion. When he's sprinting, he's burning sugar. When he's walking back to the start line, catching that breath, he's burning fat. The great thing is, for the next day and a half, he's still burning fat.
Oh, man.
When you go on a traditional cardio machine, an elliptical or a treadmill, and you're doing that sort of mind-numbing, slow intensity, long duration type of move, you know what? When you get off the machine, so the calorie burn stops.
Oh, man. Yeah, I think that's a good alternative, especially with summer coming in.
Absolutely.
Right now. It's hot outside. You're going to get not only a great workout, but you're going to, like you said, you're going to have to also cool down and have those moments where you're still burning fat, not just going through the sprints, not just going through the motions like you might, especially if you have a TV on in front of you at Planet Fitness. It's very easy to just zone out and get into a groove and, run a mile in 20 minutes or so, or 10 minutes and, not necessarily burn or optimize the workout. Yeah, I think that's pretty awesome. I think a lot of people hopefully will be able to kind of adjust to what's going on with COVID in the gyms, because I think you could get a lot of good workout, like you're saying, especially with schools being closed right now. Go out to a school, go out to a track. There's tons of them out there, and they're just not being used.
And the great way to go on a track, sprint the straightaway, walk the corner. Sprint the straightaway, walk the corner. That's another perfect pre-built HIIT workout for you. Run as fast as you can, and then go ahead and walk. You know what? Eventually you'll get to the point where you can sprint as fast as you can and jog the corners. But until that point, sprint and then walk. Sprint and then walk. And you go based upon your breathing and how close it is to pre-exercise levels.
Nice. And also, what about like the locker rooms and some of these kind of areas where people, especially when they're in a gym like that, do you think people should bring their own sterilizing, wipes or their own kind of hand sanitizer or something that's a little more industrial than they might be using, or only kind of going through every hour when people are getting in there and sweating and have a lot of body fluids that they might not have thought of cleaning since it's not a machine?
Right. I think that a lot of gyms do an admirable job trying to make it clean, trying to make it safe, especially in this day and age. But remember, no one's going to take care of you like you take care of you.
Yeah.
So take the extra second, wipe down the equipment before you get on, after you get off. The onus is really on the gym to keep that equipment clean and keep you safe. The first rule is, from the fitness standpoint, is do no harm. So the onus is on them. But you know what? Take the extra step. Make sure you wipe it down, or make sure your trainer or your exercise physiologist is wiping it down prior to handing it to you. And, in my facility, you don't get a piece of equipment from one of the exercise physiologists or strength coaches without it being wiped down. It's just a good rule of thumb. I want that client to see me wipe it down and then hand it to them.
Yeah. And what about, speaking of your gym, actually, I know you guys haven't had as many clients, obviously, with this, and a little bit of having, some staff not be able to make hours and losing a little bit of clientele. But what about some of these gyms that are, reopening to still 50% capacity? Do you think that's still as I guess, equitable as, say, something like your gym where you're having one or two people there and you're still getting a great workout? You're not having to worry about as much sanitary conditions as you might at a normal gym. Do you think it's better for that?
Well, I do. Here, pre-COVID, in the world pre-COVID, we ran 240 personal training sessions a week at my facility. Post-COVID, first week being open, we're at 105 sessions. Now, 105 would probably be pretty desirable to most facilities in the country. I'm not satisfied with that, but none of our clients have said they're not coming back. Some just want to sort of ease back into it and sort of see how the landscape of the society is with COVID right now. It's a crazy world out there. You have states that either had very light limitations before and now they're spiking. You have states that were spiking before and their numbers are going down. It's sort of the inverse now of what was happening in March, April.
Yeah, and it seems like some of the density of the population of certain areas are really what dictates whether or not they're kind of reopening gyms, they're reopening restaurants for dine-in. We're kind of outside of Philadelphia, which is a very close to New York. It was a huge hotspot for COVID when it came out, but
Yep.
now we're taking a lot of precautions. Masks are pretty much mandatory everywhere. Only eating outside a lot of places, and they're slowly reopening. But it's kind of that eye on the storm, being like, if it's going to start rising again, because I just moved here actually recently from Utah, which didn't have any regulations on masks being mandatory. They did close a lot of places, but it wasn't anything really mandated to say you had to have a mask, you had to have any of that. And then they started reopening gyms suddenly, restaurants again, for dine-in. 2 months ago. And now they're kind of having that rise. So do you think places like that are going to have another spike because they're not taking those precautions?
I think they are. And I think irrespective of how big the facility is, it needs to have a plan in place. For my example, my place, we only run 2 sessions at max an hour. Before we were running 4 and 5. We have the facility separated by a wall. We have somebody working on one half of the facility for a half hour. We have a person working on the other side for a half hour. At that half hour point, the 2 sides switch, and we do it in a manner that the 2 clients never pass each other.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's the way to go, honestly. I think that's probably what puts a lot of people's minds at ease in a facility like that.
Well, I hope so. I'm pretty adamant about putting, people over profits.
Yeah.
And you know what? Everything will come out in the wash, but you're not going to get someone's health back if they lose health based off of COVID-19. So that's the most important thing to me.
Yeah, and like you said, with this facility in West Virginia, it was one of those things, a client or a staff member came in completely unknowing that they had any kind of infection or
Right.
no symptoms, anything to show that it had that. And then once they go get tested, it's like suddenly you're really thinking about everyone you came in contact with. And to get that news as somebody that, was going about their daily business and being safe, you expect everyone else to be safe, but you don't always expect everyone to take the same precautions you might take.
And I think that brings to light a murky problem. I don't know why I have the feeling, maybe it's just from talking to several people, but I have the distinct feeling that people are, if they were found positive, they're not too quick to share it
Yeah.
to their circle or sphere of influence or the people that they've been around. And I think that the people that are infected, yes, it's horrible, but I don't think they should wear it as a scarlet letter. And I think that people are hesitant to share, hey, you know what, I got tested, I'm positive, and here's how it's working. I'm 14 days out. I'm going to quarantine for 14 days. Here's where I think I got it. These are the people I was in contact with. I need to get some information to them. I just think that, being responsible and morally sound would be the moral sound thing to do, would be to contact the people you were in contact with, and it's nothing bad on you. It doesn't look badly upon you. You got COVID. That nobody feels bad when they say, "Hey, I got the flu."
Exactly. Yeah.
So I just think that we need to look at it a little bit differently, because I feel like there are a lot of people out there. I don't know whether they're being shamed on social media, which is a big thing to do right now, shaming people. I'm not sure, but I think we need to look at it different. It's not that person's problem; it's everyone's problem. So we all need to deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a big thing for me. Like a couple months ago, actually, I was working at Trader Joe's part-time, and we had a crew member that got infected, and a lot of us wanted to know who it was, not only to, kind of offer our best wishes and our support, but for our own safety, to know if we had come in contact with them, had we worked close with them. But it came with like a tag of embarrassment. Like people didn't want to embarrass somebody, and I don't believe it should be that way. I think
It's not an embarrassing thing.
Exactly. It should be honestly something we're all kind of looking out for each other.
You know what?
with.
We're trying our best to make it through this pandemic. We're trying to save each other. So, you know what? For God's sakes, if you've been found positive, do the right thing. Go tell the people that you shared time with within the last 14 days. It doesn't make you look bad. What makes you look horrible is when you don't do that.
Yeah, you shouldn't be ashamed to let people know that
not
you've
at
been in
all.
contact
I don't
with somebody.
understand that.
No, yeah, that's definitely, I think, like you said, it may be a social media or just a societal thing with the scare of it, thinking that sometimes fear is hand in hand with things like embarrassment,
Absolutely.
but it shouldn't be that way. We should be able to really hold each other up, I think, and make each other stronger through these things, to be like, we are here for you, we understand, we get our tests. Like I said, with that Trader Joe situation, me and my girlfriend both worked there, we both got tests, came out negative, and then immediately it was like, we just wanted the best for them. And I think a lot of people are worried that they're going to get kind of shunned for it, but you're not. Trust me, if you're worried about it, go get tested. That's the best thing you can do. And if you happen to come up positive, just quarantine yourself, let everyone know what's going on, because this is a situation like none of us have ever seen.
Right.
It's definitely scary. So yeah, well, I think with that, let's go ahead and stop talking about, COVID, since we hear about that all day. And so getting back into some regular train of thought, let's talk about why people like what we did a video on recently for your gym. Let's talk about why women should resistance train specifically, because I think a lot of men have had a good time. They like to train by themselves. They're out doing their thing. But right now, because a lot of women are staying at home, helping their children with school, and having to really take a lot of time away from their their daily life. I think a lot of people are wondering how they can get back into training, how they can get back into shape. And I think, after talking to you a little bit about it, I think resistance training is going to be the way to go. So what are some of the key points for women when they want to get back into resistance training, whether at the gym or at their home, but in their spare time as things are starting to reopen?
Well, number one, for females, the best thing about resistance training is it stops and diminishes the chance of osteoporosis. If I had nothing else to say and that was it, that would be enough. It strengthens the bones. The body is very resilient. And so what I mean by that is the body is not going to allow calcium to leach out of the bones, osteoporosis, if it realizes, hey, you know what, the next day or 2 days from now, she's going to go to that gym, she's going to put resistance on her, she's going to deadlift, she's going to squat. It won't allow those bones to get weak. Actually, it will get stronger. I had a client, this was several years back, she was stage 2 osteoporosis, 18 months of resistance training, and I'm talking heavy. And this lady was 64, 65. She owned a bed and breakfast. Lovely lady.
Nice.
And she, 18 months after resistance training, no signs, after they did a DEXA scan on her, no signs of osteoporosis.
Wow.
So she reversed her osteoporosis, which was just amazing. She was scared going into it. She didn't know what to expect. But through sound training, she got exactly what she wanted, and she came out all the better for it. I need to dispel one fitness fallacy and myth and folklore. Many women, not all women, but many women feel that if they even look at a weight, they're going to get muscle bound. That doesn't happen. Okay, if it did, then every guy that goes into the gym would look like a linebacker, but that's not the case. So, number one, women do not have enough of the hormone testosterone. If they're eating a soundly designed nutrition program, they're not going to be in a caloric surplus that would allow them to put on muscle. Number three, the body's resistant to putting on muscle. It wants to use those calories for everything else. It wants to heart function, lungs function, skin, nail, hair, everything. That is sort of the sundae at the end of the meal, or the cherry on top of the sundae, building muscle. That's not what the body wants to do. It wants to do the opposite. The body wants to store fat and get rid of muscle, because muscle takes too much to maintain it.
Makes sense. Yeah, and I think with at least with the resistance training, I'm not sure if it's that people are a little bit afraid of it or they don't exactly understand it. But like you're saying, it can reduce a lot of risks if you learn the right techniques. You're not only going to lose body fat if you can keep up with it, but I've seen even things like being able to reduce your risk of diabetes. The same thing.
Well, once you have a more favorable body composition, everything else gets in line. HDL, your high density lipoprotein, the good cholesterol, goes up. LDL, your low density lipoprotein, the bad cholesterol, goes down. You have a greater management of insulin, so that when you shoot insulin out of your pancreas, once you ingest a carbohydrate, you shoot out just enough in order to remove the superfluous glucose from the bloodstream. We're not shooting out a ton and becoming insulin resistant. So all those things, plus the increased musculature, which will allow you to burn more calories even at rest, are all beneficial to having a positive body composition. The other thing is, hormonally, especially if you're nearing menopause or you're post-menopause, hormonally, resistance training gets those hormone levels in check and helps you get through menopause a little bit easier.
Nice. Yeah, and I think a lot of people do have problems with that. They think about once you get to hit menopause, you're like, I'm just done with all this. And I think it can be totally reversed. A lot of people get depression around that time. And I think if you keep maintaining yourself, you feel good about yourself, that's obviously going to counteract that. But same thing with even younger people. I'd imagine resistance training, whether you're in high school, college, and whether or not you're actually like on a team for a sport or something, but I imagine it's going to really help in the long term a little bit more of your athletic performance, right?
Well, they even say that the amount of calcium and milk you drink as a tweener affects your chances of having osteoporosis as an adult. The same thing holds true with resistance training. The stronger those bones are made, the less likely they're going to leach out calcium. And that's all we're looking for.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, is there anything else that you think would be like a good reason why women should get into resistance training, no matter what their age is at the moment?
Well, it doesn't matter if you're a tennis player, a golfer, a swimmer. It doesn't matter what extracurricular or what sport you choose, for your leisure activity. You're going to become a better athlete. Our goal when we train someone is we don't want to have 635 muscles all working, just albeit on their own. We want 635 muscles working together. So when we're running, each muscle is working in concert with the other muscles to produce the given movement that we're looking for. So you're going to become a more effective athlete. You're going to not be as sick. You're going to not have the propensity for slips and falls. You're going to be able to have more enjoyable time with your kids or your grandchildren because you're going to be more active. I just can't say enough about it.
Yeah, it seems like resistance training, honestly, no matter who you are, is going to be the way to go. It's going to help you, especially right now. Again, with COVID-19, a lot of people staying at home, a lot of people putting on a little extra weight, and just having something to really look forward to. I think it's a good thing no matter what. It's a mind, body, spirit kind of thing. It really puts your body to work. It keeps your mind focused. It keeps your spirit happy. And I think that's all you can ask for in those kind of situations.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, did you want to get into the spiritual minute for this video today?
Yeah, I would. A lot of people, and I speak to, a lot of people throughout the week, and, they kind of approach this thing about the COVID-19 and the economic downturn from the COVID-19 and the trickle-down economics. Why me? Why, I have the business consultant who, was riding at the top of his game, and he hasn't been working for, since COVID-19. You have people that are in commercial real estate that their clients or their tenants haven't paid them. The Bible tells us that God's got a purpose and a plan for each one of our lives, and nothing can thwart his plan for our lives. Okay? It doesn't say everything with the exception of COVID-19. It says that nothing can thwart or short-circuit his plan for our lives. And if we look at the Bible for a second, and you take the story of Job. Job was riding high. Job had everything. Mm-hmm. Job had a hedge of protection around him and around his family, so that on all sides, everything would flourish. And Satan went to God and said, surely if we take everything from Job, he'll curse you. So did God bring the 9 months of struggle and trials and tribulations onto Job? No. But what he did do was when Satan went to him and asked permission to test or try Job, God set the parameters. He said, you can take everything he has, but you can't touch his body. Then the second round, after he lost his children, he lost his business, he lost his servants, he lost everything. Satan went back to God, and God said, okay, this time you can touch his person, but you can't kill him. So at each step of the way, God knew what his ultimate plan for Job was. And he also knew that he wasn't going to allow anything to come in and interfere with that. So he set the boundaries. He set the parameters. If you feel you're being tested or tried right now, God set the parameters. You sit in the palm of his hand, and nothing is going to happen outside of what his ultimate plan is for your life. And it says in the Bible, every one of God's promises are yes and amen. It takes the faith the size of a mustard seed to please God. It's not your battle. Give it over to God. Reach out to him. Pray with your heart. And he'll see your heart, and everything's going to turn out all right. Because we're assured that it says in Romans 8:28, and we know that God works all things together for the good, for those who love him, for those who are called according to his purpose. It doesn't say in that verse that everything's going to be good.
Yeah.
It says that God's going to take the most distasteful and unpleasant circumstances, and he's going to use it for our good. Think about the ultimate worst thing that anything could have happened was the day that Christ died on the cross. At that moment, didn't look good.
That's true.
Didn't look good for anyone. But if it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for that day, if it wasn't for that act, then we wouldn't have salvation.
Yeah, and I think for me, I totally agree with that message there, because a lot of this that's going through so many people's minds is it's just hard. It's breaking a lot of spirits. A lot of people are just depressed and down. They just don't see the end of this coming. But just have that faith, because everything is in God's hands right now. He's not going to let this, end badly. This is going to be something where if you can keep strong, you're going to come out of this, and there's going to be so much good that we're going to be able to deliver to other people, especially in this moment. Maybe that's what we need, is to be able to start caring about others. Maybe there's a silver lining here somewhere that will start to, I think, make sense to a lot more people as we're kind of figuring it out. It's just a very complicated situation, but yeah, that was really, really nice. That was awesome. I think that'll help inspire quite a few people.
I hope so.
Yeah. Real quick, before we get to our outro, I want to go ahead and throw out one more ad real quick for appliedbodyscience.net. You can head over there. Like I said, schedule a training session. Send them an email. Scott personally will, be able to take care of you. You can come in and schedule a time to meet with him. Maybe he can let you know what's going on with the gym, let you know if he can get you in, and maybe let you train with a friend, something like that, where you can kind of see what's going on in the world of applied body science and see how that kind of a thing with the personal training is going compared to places like Planet Fitness right now, where a lot of people have normally had their process, but maybe take a couple extra precautions, go somewhere a little bit cleaner, a little safer, and maybe you make actually a training friend that'll be able to really help you along to the next stage in life. So appliedbodyscience.net. I'll put the link in the comments or down in the description. Leave a comment and we'll make sure that we look at everything and we are able to answer people's questions about anything like that. But yeah, I think for the next episode, hopefully we'll talk a little bit about the post-COVID body, the COVID-19 pounds that you might be putting on right now. And I think a lot of people are worried about that.
I think they are, and I think that if we go into it with a sound mind, I think that we'll be able to knock off those COVID-19 or 20 pounds you put on, and we'll be able to do it safe. It will be effective, and it will be sustainable. You're not going to get there overnight. If you spent 3.5 months, eating away your stress and drinking away your stress, you're not going to get rid of it overnight. So we need to make some sound choices nutritionally, and we need to know which exercises are really going to benefit us. Not all exercises are created equal, so we will definitely talk about that next week.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for stopping by this episode of the Spiritual Muscle Podcast. This is episode 2. We're starting to get a little bit more routine with this, so hopefully you guys will stay tuned for next week, and like I said, we'll talk a little bit more about the reopenings, a little bit more of what you can do as things are getting back to normal with shedding some of those extra post-COVID pounds. But for now, hey, I've been Cory.
I'm Scott.
And we'll see you next week on the Spiritual Muscle Podcast.
Have a great week.